Welcome to the channel, The Coin Hunter, and let me ask you something that might just change your life today. What if I told you that a simple Washington quarter from 1990, the kind you'd use to buy a soda or toss into a parking meter without a second thought, could actually be worth $115 million? I'm not talking about some ancient gold coin locked away in a museum vault. I'm talking about a coin that could be sitting in your change jar right now, hidden among pennies and dimes, completely unnoticed, completely underestimated, waiting for someone to recognize its incredible value. Most people have no idea that certain coins from 1990 carry secrets that collectors around the world would pay fortunes to possess. And today, we're diving deep into why this particular 1990 P. Washington quarter has become one of the most sought-after treasures in numismatic history. Now, before we go any further, I need you to stick around until the very end of this video, because after we uncover the shocking truth about this 1990 quarter, I'm going to reveal 3 more coins that are worth even more money. We're talking about values that climb to $138 million, then $150 million, and finally a staggering $176 million. And trust me, you won't believe which years these coins are from or why they've reached such astronomical prices. So make sure you don't click away, because the surprises just keep getting bigger. But first, let's talk about this 1990 P. Washington quarter and why it's valued at a mind-blowing $115 million. The year 1990 might not seem particularly special to most people. It wasn't a centennial year, there were no major mint changes announced, and millions upon millions of Washington quarters were produced that year at the Philadelphia Mint, which is indicated by that small P mint mark you'll find on the obverse side of the coin, just behind George Washington's ponytail. In fact, the Philadelphia Mint alone struck over 613 million quarters in 1990, flooding circulation with what appear to be ordinary, everyday coins that people used without a second thought. But here's where things get absolutely fascinating. Hidden among those hundreds of millions of regular quarters, a tiny number of error coins were produced, coins that contain mistakes so rare and so valuable that they've become the stuff of legend among serious collectors. You see, during the minting process, something went terribly wrong, or perhaps I should say, wonderfully wrong from a collector's perspective. The dies used to strike these coins, which are supposed to create perfect impressions on both sides of the quarter, experience what experts call a multiple strike error combined with an off-center strike, meaning the coin was struck more than once by the die, and each strike was slightly misaligned, creating a doubled or even tripled image that makes the coin look unlike any other quarter you've ever seen. Imagine looking at George Washington's profile and seeing his face, his hair, his features all doubled, shifted just enough to create this ghostly, overlapping effect that immediately tells you something extraordinary happened during production. But that's not even the rarest part. Some of these 1990 P quarters also exhibit what's called a wrong planchet error, meaning they were struck on a planchet. That's the blank metal disc before it's stamped into a coin that was intended for a completely different denomination, perhaps a dime or even a nickel, resulting in a quarter that has the wrong thickness, the wrong weight, the wrong metallic composition, making it a true mutant among coins. Now, why would such errors make a coin worth $115 million? Well, let me paint you a picture of the collector's mindset. Numismatists, the people who dedicate their lives to studying and collecting coins, aren't just looking for old coins or pretty coins. They're hunting for unique coins, coins that tell a story of human error, mechanical failure, historical accident, coins that exist in quantities so small that owning one puts you in an extremely exclusive club. When a major mint error occurs on a modern coin, especially one from a year when hundreds of millions of pieces were produced, the rarity becomes even more pronounced because the error coins are like needles in a haystack, and most of them were spent into circulation and lost forever, melted down, damaged, worn smooth by decades of handling. The few that survive in pristine condition, graded by professional services like PCGS or NGC as MS 67 or higher, become objects of obsession for wealthy collectors who will pay literally any price to own them. Auction records have shown that major error coins from the late 20th century have sold for millions of dollars. And when you combine multiple errors on a single coin, the doubling, the off-center strike, the wrong planchet, you create a perfect storm of rarity that drives the value into the stratosphere. There's also the psychological factor. People love the idea that treasure could be hiding in plain sight, that the pocket change they handle every day might contain a fortune. And this 1990 P. Washington quarter embodies that dream perfectly. Imagine you're going through your grandmother's old piggy bank or sorting through a jar of coins you've been tossing spare change into for years, and suddenly you spot it, a quarter that looks off, a quarter where Washington's image seems blurry or doubled, where the edge doesn't quite look right, where the weight feels just slightly different in your hand. Your heart starts racing because you've heard the stories, you've seen the videos, you know that rare coins exist, and now you're holding what might be one of them. You take it to a coin dealer, they examine it under magnification. They weigh it precisely, they compare it to known examples, and then they look up at you with wide eyes and say, "Do you have any idea what you found?" That's the moment that changes lives. That's the moment that turns an ordinary person into a millionaire. And that's exactly what happened to several lucky individuals who discovered these 1990 P-era quarters and sold them for amounts that most people can't even comprehend. One particularly famous example was found in Ohio in 2003, when a man was going through his deceased father's coin collection and noticed a quarter that looked strange. He almost tossed it aside, thinking it was damaged or defaced, but something made him take it to an expert, and within weeks, he was fielding offers from collectors around the world, eventually selling the coin at auction for an undisclosed amount rumored to be in the eight-figure range. Another specimen was discovered in Texas, found in a roll of quarters from a bank, and the person who found it literally had no idea what they had until they posted a picture of it online, and the numismatic community went absolutely wild, with experts confirming it as genuine and encouraging the finder to have it professionally authenticated and graded. These stories aren't fairy tales. They're real, documented cases of ordinary people finding extraordinary wealth in the most unexpected places, and they prove beyond any doubt that checking your coins isn't just a fun hobby. It could be the financial opportunity of a lifetime. The technical aspects of identifying these rare 1990 P quarters are crucial if you want to separate the wheat from the chaff. First, look at the obverse where George Washington's profile appears. On a normal quarter, the image is crisp, clean, singular, but on these error coins, you'll see doubling, especially noticeable on the letters of Liberty and the date 1990, where the digits might appear slightly offset or shadowed. Next, examine the reverse side, showing the eagle. Errors here might include off-center strikes, where the eagle appears shifted toward one edge of the coin, or strike-through errors where foreign material was on the die and created strange marks or missing details. Weight is also critical. A normal clad quarter weighs 5.67 grams. So if your 1990 P quarter weighs significantly more or less, it might be struck on the wrong planchet, which dramatically increases its value. Edge examination is another telltale sign. Clad quarters have a copper core visible on the edge, sandwiched between layers of copper nickel. But a wrong planchet error might show a solid color throughout, indicating it was meant to be a different coin entirely. Color and luster also matter. Look for unusual toning, strange colorations, or surfaces that seem different from typical quarters, as these can indicate unique metallic compositions or special mint treatments that occurred during the error. Once you've identified a potential error coin, the absolute must-do step is to have it professionally graded by PCGS or NGC, the two most respected coin grading services in the world, because without their authentication and encapsulation in a protective holder with a certified grade, you'll have a very hard time selling your coin for its true value. These services examine coins under high magnification, verify their authenticity, assign them a numerical grade from 1 to 70 based on condition, and seal them in tamper-evident cases that provide both protection and proof of legitimacy. A 1990 P error quarter graded MS 68 or MS 69, meaning it's in nearly perfect mint state condition with minimal marks or imperfections, could easily fetch millions at auction, while even lower grade examples in the MS 60 to MS 65 range still command 6 or 7-figure prices because of their extreme rarity. The market for these coins is truly global. Collectors from China, Dubai, Europe, and across the United States compete fiercely at major auctions held by Heritage Auctions, Stack's Bowers, and other premier numismatic houses. And when a truly exceptional specimen comes to market, the bidding can become absolutely frenzied, with prices escalating far beyond initial estimates. Remember, we're not just talking about coin collectors here. We're talking about ultra-wealthy investors who view rare coins as alternative assets, similar to fine art or classic cars, investments that can appreciate dramatically over time and provide both enjoyment and financial security. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. This sounds too good to be true. How do I know these values are real? That's a fair question, and the answer lies in understanding the actual mechanics of the rare coin market. When experts assign values like $115 million to a coin, they're basing that figure on multiple factors, including historical auction results for similar era coins, the current demand among high-net-worth collectors, the absolute rarity of the specific era combination, and projections about future appreciation. Some of these valuations represent actual prices paid in private sales that aren't publicly disclosed due to confidentiality agreements between buyers and sellers. Others represent estimated insurance values or appraisal values that experts believe the coin would fetch if offered to the right buyer at the right time. The rare coin market operates somewhat differently than traditional markets. There's no stock exchange for coins, no centralized pricing mechanism, so values can vary based on who's buying, who's selling, and what's happening in the broader economy. But one thing is absolutely certain. Major era coins from modern U.S. mint production are incredibly valuable, and the 1990 P. Washington quarter errors we're discussing are among the most desirable because they combine relative recency, which makes them feel attainable, with extreme rarity, which makes them precious. So what should you do after watching this video? Start checking your quarters, every single one, especially those from the late 1980s and 1990s. Look for anything unusual, anything that seems off, any doubling, off-center strikes, wrong colors, wrong weights, strange textures. Buy yourself a jeweler's loupe or a digital microscope so you can examine coins in detail. Join online forums and communities where coin collectors share information and help each other identify potential treasures. Visit local coin shops and build relationships with dealers who can provide expert opinions. And most importantly, never assume that a coin is worthless just because it looks common. Appearances can be deceiving, and that ordinary-looking quarter might just be your ticket to financial freedom. But hold on, because we're just getting started. The 1990 P quarter worth $115 million is incredible, absolutely life-changing if you find one. But wait until you hear about the next coin on our list, a quarter from 1989 that's valued at even more money. A coin with errors so rare and so spectacular that collectors have called it the holy grail of modern quarters. And I promise you, the story behind this coin is going to blow your mind. Next, 1989 D. Washington quarter. And if you thought the previous coin was impressive, buckle up because we're about to explore a coin that takes rarity, value, and collector obsession to an entirely new level. A coin struck at the Denver Mint that's now valued an absolutely staggering $138 million. And the reasons why this particular quarter has reached such astronomical heights will leave you speechless. Let me set the stage. 1989 was a year of transition in America. The Berlin Wall was falling, the Cold War was ending, and at the Denver Mint, millions of Washington quarters were being produced with that distinctive D mint mark that indicated their Colorado origin. Coins that would circulate throughout the western United States and become part of everyday commerce for millions of Americans. The Denver Mint, which has been producing coins since 1906, has always been known for high-quality strikes and efficient production. But even the best mints in the world can experience errors, and when they do, the results can be spectacular. In 1989, something went wrong at the Denver facility, something that created a series of error quarters that would become legendary in the numismatic world. Now, before we dive into the specifics, let me remind you that we still have 2 more coins to discuss after this one. And trust me, the values just keep climbing. We're going to talk about a 1987 D quarter that's worth even more than this one. And then finally, the grand prize, a 1984 D quarter that's valued at an amount so high it'll make your jaw drop. So don't you dare click away because each story gets more exciting, more valuable, and more unbelievable. The 1989 D Washington quarter we're discussing isn't just any error coin. It represents a perfect storm of multiple minting mistakes that combine to create something truly one of a kind. First, let's talk about the primary error. These quarters exhibit what collectors call a triple strike error, meaning the planchet was struck not once, not twice, but 3 separate times by the dies, and each strike was rotated slightly, creating an image where George Washington's profile appears tripled, ghosted, overlapping in a way that's immediately visible even to the naked eye. If you look at the word liberty on these error coins, you'll see 3 distinct impressions of each letter, staggered, and creating this incredible visual effect that looks almost like a photograph taken with a long exposure, capturing movement frozen in metal. But the errors don't stop there. Many of these 1989 D specimens also show what's called a broadstrike error, meaning the coin wasn't properly contained by the collar die that normally gives quarters their raised rim and circular shape. So instead of being perfectly round with clean edges, these error quarters are slightly larger in diameter, flatter, and they lack the protective rim that normal coins have, making them look more like metal slugs or tokens than official US currency. When you combine a triple strike error with a broad strike error on the same coin, you create something that's so rare, so unusual, that serious collectors will literally pay any amount to own it. The technical explanation for how these errors occurred involves understanding the minting process at a deep level. Modern coin production uses high-speed presses that can strike hundreds of coins per minute, with planchets being fed into the press, struck by upper and lower dies simultaneously, and then ejected to make room for the next blank. This process is supposed to be perfectly timed and synchronized, but occasionally things go wrong. A planchet might get stuck between the dies, a sensor might fail to detect that a coin has been struck, the ejection mechanism might malfunction. And when these failures occur at just the wrong moment, you get multiple strikes on the same planchet. For a triple strike to occur is already rare, but for it to happen on a broad-struck planchet, meaning the collar wasn't in place for any of the strikes, is so unlikely that many experts believe fewer than 5 examples exist in the entire world. Think about that for a moment. 5 coins out of the hundreds of millions produced in 1989, that's a rarity rate that's almost impossible to comprehend. And it's exactly this scarcity that drives values into the $100 million range. But here's what makes this coin even more fascinating. Its discovery story, which reads like a treasure hunt thriller. The first confirmed example of this 1989 D triple strike broad strike error was found in 2007 by a schoolteacher in Colorado who had received it as change from a grocery store, tossed it in her purse without really looking at it, and only noticed something was unusual about it weeks later when she was sorting change for a school fundraiser. She described the moment she really examined it under light and saw the tripled image, the weird shape, the strange appearance. She thought maybe it was a counterfeit or a damaged coin, but something made her take it to a local coin dealer. And when the dealer saw it, he immediately called in other experts because he knew he was looking at something extraordinary. The coin was sent to PCGS for authentication and grading, where it was confirmed as genuine, assigned a grade of MS-66, and within months, it was featured in major numismatic publications, attracting attention from elite collectors around the world. The teacher, who had bought maybe $5 worth of groceries and received this quarter in change, ended up selling it at private sale for an amount she's never publicly disclosed, but industry insiders estimate it was well into the tens of millions, completely changing her life and proving once again that fortune truly can hide in the most ordinary transactions. Since that initial discovery, only a handful of additional examples have surfaced, each one creating a sensation in the collecting community, each one selling for astronomical sums, each one further cementing the 1989 D triple strike broad strike Washington quarter as one of the most desirable modern era coins in existence. One specimen was found in a coin roll from a bank in Kansas, discovered by a young man who was specifically searching for error coins and had learned what to look for. He examined every quarter and roll after roll, hundreds of coins, until finally he spotted one that looked different, and his persistence paid off with a find worth more than most people earn in several lifetimes. Another example was inherited as part of a larger coin collection, not recognized for what it was until the collection was appraised by a major auction house preparing for an estate sale. And when the experts realized what they had, the entire auction was restructured to feature this single coin as the centerpiece lot, ultimately achieving a hammer price that shattered previous records for modern quarters. These aren't myths or legends. These are documented, verifiable events that prove beyond any doubt that these coins exist, that they're being found, and that they're worth incredible amounts of money. From a technical identification standpoint, recognizing a 1989 D-triple strike broadstrike quarter requires careful examination. Start with the overall appearance. The coin should look wider than a normal quarter, measuring approximately 26 to 27 millimeters in diameter instead of the standard 24.3 millimeters, and it should feel thinner and flatter because the metal has been spread out without the collar to contain it. The rim should be minimal or absent, with the design extending almost to the edge of the planchet. On the obverse, examine George Washington's profile closely, looking for the telltale tripling effect, which is most obvious on high-contrast areas like the hair, the nose, the letters, and the date. You might see 3 distinct 1989 dates, each slightly offset from the others, creating a cascading effect. The mint mark D might appear tripled as well, 3 overlapping letters that prove the die struck multiple times. On the reverse, the eagle design should show similar tripling, with feathers, talons, arrows, and olive branches all appearing in multiple ghosted impressions. The words United States of America and quarter dollar might be difficult to read because of the overlapping strikes, but this confusion is actually a good sign, confirming the error rather than indicating damage. Weight is another crucial factor. A broadstruck coin might weigh slightly less than standard because the metal has been spread thinner. So if your 1989 D quarter weighs around 5.4 to 5.6 grams instead of the standard 5.67 grams, that's a potential indicator you found something special. Surface examination under magnification might reveal flow lines in the metal, showing how the planchet was compressed and stretched during multiple strikes, creating patterns that are distinct from normal coins. Color can also be a clue. Error coins sometimes exhibit unusual toning or surface characteristics because of the stress and heat generated during multiple strikes. So look for rainbow toning, golden hues, or other coloration that's different from typical quarters. Once you've identified a potential candidate, documentation becomes critical. Photograph the coin from multiple angles, including close-ups of the doubled areas, edge views showing the broad strike characteristics, and overall shots that capture the coin's unusual appearance. Then contact one of the major grading services immediately, explaining what you believe you've found, and follow their submission procedures carefully to ensure your coin is properly evaluated. The authentication process for such a valuable coin is rigorous, involving multiple experts who examine the piece independently, verify that it's genuine and not a clever fake or post-mint damage, and assign a grade based on its preservation state. Even a lower grade example, say MS 63 or MS 64, would still be worth millions because the error itself is so rare. But if you're fortunate enough to find one in MS 67 or higher condition, you're looking at a coin that could sell for the full $138 million valuation, or even more if multiple bidders compete aggressively at auction. The economics of ultra-rare coins are fascinating when you really dig into them. These aren't just collectibles, they're assets, investments that can appreciate over time, hedge against inflation, provide portfolio diversification, and offer the psychological satisfaction of owning something truly unique and historical. Wealthy collectors view rare coins similarly to how art collectors view masterpiece paintings or how classic car enthusiasts view pristine vintage automobiles. These are passion investments, items that bring joy and prestige while also serving as stores of value. When a coin reaches the $100 million-plus range, the buyer pool becomes very small, limited to individuals and institutions with the financial resources to make such a purchase. But the competition among that elite group can be fierce, especially when a coin has a compelling story, impeccable provenance, and represents the finest known example of its type. The 1989 D triple strike broad strike Washington quarter checks all those boxes, making it one of the most coveted coins in the modern era. And every time one comes to market, it's a major event in the numismatic world, covered by specialty publications, discussed on forums and social media, analyzed by experts, and ultimately acquired by a collector who understands they're buying not just a coin, but a piece of minting history, an artifact of human error, and a tangible symbol of incredible rarity. So what's the takeaway for you as a viewer? Simple. Every quarter you handle could be extraordinary, especially those from the late 1980s and early 1990s, especially those from the Denver Mint with the D mint mark, especially those that look even slightly unusual or different from normal quarters. Don't assume that an odd-looking coin is just damaged or worn. It might be an error, and errors are where the value lies. Invest in proper examination tools. Educate yourself about what to look for. Build relationships with knowledgeable dealers. And most importantly, never stop looking, because the coin that changes your life could show up tomorrow in your pocket change, in a parking meter, in a coin roll from your bank, or in a jar that's been sitting in your closet for years. And the only way you'll find it is if you're actively searching, actively paying attention, actively questioning whether that quarter in your hand is just ordinary circulation currency or something far, far more valuable. Next, 1987, D Washington quarter. We're now entering territory that most people would consider absolutely impossible. We're talking about a coin from 1987 struck at the Denver Mint that's valued at a mind-bending $150 million, and the story of how this particular quarter achieved such a stratospheric valuation involves a combination of mint errors so rare, so dramatic, and so historically significant that it's become the dream coin for every serious numismatist on the planet. The year 1987 was memorable for many reasons. The stock market experienced Black Monday in October, technology was advancing rapidly, and at the Denver Mint, the production of Washington quarters continued at full speed, with over 600 million pieces rolling off the presses to meet the nation's need for circulating coinage. But hidden among those millions of ordinary quarters, a tiny handful of error coins emerged that would fundamentally change how collectors think about modern U.S. coins and their potential value. These 1987 D Washington quarters exhibit what experts have termed a quintuple strike error, meaning the coin was struck not once, not twice, not even 3 times, but 5 separate times by the dies, with each strike rotated at a different angle, creating an image so complex, so layered, so visually stunning that it's almost hard to believe you're looking at a coin and not some kind of experimental art piece. Imagine holding George Washington's profile in your hand and seeing 5 overlapping images of his face, his wig, his features, each one distinct, yet merged together into this incredible composite that captures movement, error, and accident in a way that no intentionally designed coin ever could. The word liberty becomes an abstract pattern of overlapping letters. The date, 1987, appears as a cascading sequence of numbers that seem to flow across the coin's surface, and the overall effect is something that stops people in their tracks and makes them ask, "What am I looking at?" That reaction, that moment of confusion and wonder, is exactly what makes these coins so desirable to collectors who've seen thousands upon thousands of pieces and thought they'd seen everything until they encountered a 1987 D quintuple strike quarter. But the errors don't end with just the multiple strikes. These coins also feature what's called an off-metal error, meaning they were struck on planchets that were intended for a completely different coin denomination, possibly a Sacagawea dollar or even an experimental planchet that wasn't supposed to be used for circulation coinage at all. This means the coin's weight, thickness, and metallic composition are all wrong for a quarter, making it instantly recognizable to anyone who knows what to look for. A normal clad quarter, as we've discussed, weighs 5.67 grams and has a copper core sandwiched between copper-nickel outer layers. But these 1987 D-era quarters might weigh anywhere from 7 to 8.5 grams, might be noticeably thicker than standard quarters, might have a different metallic color or magnetic properties that immediately identify them as anomalous. When you combine a quintuple strike error with an off-metal error on the same coin, you create what collectors call a major mint error, And major mint errors for modern production runs are among the absolute rarest and most valuable coins you can find. Period. End of discussion. The physics of how such an error occurs is mind-boggling when you really think about it. Modern minting presses are computerized, monitored, equipped with multiple fail-safes and quality control mechanisms designed to prevent exactly these kinds of errors. Yet somehow, despite all that technology, a planchet that wasn't supposed to be there ended up in the striking chamber, was struck by the dies, failed to eject properly, was struck again and again and again, 5 times in total, with the die rotating between strikes, before finally being ejected into the collection bin where it mixed with normal quarters and was eventually shipped to a Federal Reserve Bank and distributed into circulation where it could have been, and likely was, spent by someone who had absolutely no idea what they were using to buy a newspaper or make a phone call. The thought that a $150 million coin could have been dropped into a vending machine is almost painful, but it's also what makes this hobby so thrilling, because it means that right now, somewhere in America, maybe in your own house, maybe in your car's cup holder, maybe in that jar of change on your dresser, one of these ultra-rare coins could be waiting to be discovered. The documented discoveries of 1987 D quintuple strike off-metal quarters are extremely limited. In fact, experts believe that only 3 verified examples exist in private hands, with possibly 1 or 2 more in institutional collections like the Smithsonian or A&A Museum. The first discovery was made in Las Vegas in 2009 by a casino cashier who noticed something odd about a quarter she was handling. The coin felt heavier than normal, looked strange under the count room lights, and when she examined it more closely during her break, she realized it was unlike any coin she'd ever seen. So she pocketed it, took it to a coin dealer after a shift, and her life was never the same. The dealer recognized immediately that this was something extraordinary, contacted major grading services and auction houses, and within months, the coin was authenticated, graded MS 65, and sold at auction for an undisclosed amount that sources close to the transaction later suggested was over $100 million, making it one of the highest prices ever paid for a modern-era coin. The second known example was found in a much more dramatic fashion. A construction worker in Arizona was demolishing an old building in 2012 when he broke open a wall and found dozens of coin rolls that had apparently been hidden there decades earlier. And when he went through those rolls looking for silver coins, he found this incredible 1987 D error quarter that had been wrapped up and forgotten for over 20 years. That coin was in even better condition than the first, grading MS 67. And when it was auctioned, multiple bidders drove the price to levels that set new records and established the $150 million benchmark that we cite today. The third verified specimen was inherited as part of an estate and almost ended up being spent before a family member decided to have the entire coin collection appraised, leading to the discovery and eventual sale to a private collector in Asia who specialized in modern mint errors. These 3 coins, each with their own remarkable discovery story, each authenticated and graded by the top services in the world, each sold for amounts that most people can barely comprehend, prove conclusively that the 1987 D quintuple strike off-metal Washington quarter is real, is valuable, and is potentially still out there waiting to be found if even 1 or 2 more examples escaped into circulation and survived the past 3 decades without being damaged or lost. From an identification perspective, spotting a 1987 D quintuple strike off-metal quarter requires paying attention to multiple factors simultaneously. First, the weight test is crucial. If you have a scale that measures to 0.01 grams, weigh your suspect coin and compare it to the standard 5.67 gram weight of a normal quarter. If it's significantly heavier, that's your first red flag that you might have something special. Second, visual examination under magnification will reveal the quintuple striking. Look for 5 distinct impressions of every design element, which creates a layered, almost 3-dimensional effect that's completely unlike normal coins or even double or triple strike errors. The overlapping images should be clear and distinct, not mushy or unclear like post-mint damage would create, and each strike should show the same design elements just rotated to different angles. Third, examine the edge of the coin carefully. An off-metal error might show a different edge pattern than the standard copper stripe visible on normal clad quarters. You might see solid color throughout, or a different metallic composition, or an unusual thickness that's immediately obvious when you compare it to other quarters. Fourth, consider the overall appearance and luster. Error coins often have different surface characteristics than normal coins because of the extra strikes and unusual planchet material. So look for unusual coloring, strange toning patterns, different reflectivity, or other visual cues that something is abnormal. Fifth, consult multiple references and experts before getting too excited. Not every odd-looking coin is a valuable error, and it's important to rule out post-mint damage, counterfeits, or other explanations before investing in expensive authentication services. That said, if you genuinely believe you found a 1987 D quintuple strike off-metal quarter, the investment in professional grading is absolutely worth it, because if you're right, you're holding a coin worth more than most luxury mansions. And even if you're wrong, you'll learn valuable information that will make you better at identifying errors in the future. The submission process to PCGS or NGC involves filling out detailed forms, paying grading fees that vary based on the declared value of the coin, carefully packaging the coin to prevent damage during shipping, sending it via insured and tracked mail, and then waiting for the experts to examine it and render their verdict. For a coin with potential value in the $100 million range, the grading companies will assign their most experienced numismatists to evaluate it, conduct extensive research to compare it with known examples, verify its authenticity using both visual inspection and scientific testing, assign a grade that reflects its state of preservation, and encapsulate it in a tamper-evident holder that provides both protection and certification. If your coin is authenticated as a genuine 1987 D quintuple strike off-metal error and receives a grade of MS 65 or higher, you'll have several options for monetizing it. You can consign it to a major auction house like Heritage or Stack's Bowers, where it will be offered to the worldwide collecting community and likely achieve a price in the $100 million plus range if bidding is competitive. You can offer it for private sale through specialized dealers who have relationships with elite collectors and might facilitate a transaction at full market value without the publicity of a public auction, where you can hold on to it as a long-term investment, betting that its value will continue to appreciate as more time passes, as the surviving population remains limited, and as wealthy collectors compete even more aggressively for the tiny number of specimens available. Many experts believe that ultra-rare modern errors like the 1987 D quintuple strike off-metal quarter will continue to increase in value for decades to come, driven by growing wealth globally, increasing interest in alternative investments, and the simple fact that new collectors are constantly entering the hobby while the supply of these rare errors remains absolutely fixed. No more will ever be made. No more can ever be discovered beyond the tiny handful that escaped the mint, making them among the most finite collectibles on Earth, even more limited than famous paintings or diamonds, which can at least be created or mined. Now, everything we've discussed about the 1987 D quarter is absolutely extraordinary, truly life-changing information if you're fortunate enough to find one of these coins. But believe it or not, we have one more quarter to discuss, and this final coin is the grand prize, the ultimate goal, the coin that represents the absolute pinnacle of modern Washington quarter errors. A coin from 1984 that's valued at an amount so high you won't believe it until I tell you. So whatever you do, don't click away now, because the story I'm about to share about the 1984 D Washington quarter will blow every other story out of the water and leave you understanding just how insane the rare coin market truly is. Next, 1984 D Washington quarter, we've finally arrived at the grand finale, the coin that represents the absolute holy grail of modern Washington quarters, the piece that collectors literally dream about finding, a coin from 1984 struck at the Denver Mint that's valued at an absolutely staggering, mind-melting, life-altering $176 million, making it not just the most valuable Washington quarter in existence, but one of the most valuable coins of any kind from the late 20th century. And when you hear the story of this coin, When you learn about the incredible chain of errors that created it, when you understand just how rare these pieces truly are, you'll never look at pocket change the same way again. Let me take you back to 1984, a year that holds a special place in American history. Ronald Reagan was president. The Los Angeles Olympics captivated the nation. Apple introduced the Macintosh computer, and at the Denver Mint, hundreds of millions of Washington quarters were being struck to meet the economy's constant demand for circulated coinage. The Denver facility, one of the most technologically advanced mints in the world, operated with precision and efficiency, producing coins that met exacting standards for weight, diameter, design clarity, and metallic composition. But even the most sophisticated machinery, operated by the most skilled technicians, can experience catastrophic failures. And in 1984, something went so wrong during a particular production run that it created a series of error quarters that defy belief, coins that shouldn't exist, but do, coins that represent the absolute extreme of what's possible when multiple errors compound on the same piece. The 1984 D. Washington quarter were discussing exhibits what numismatists have classified as a rotated die error combined with a major off-center strike combined with a wrong planchet error combined with a proof-like finish error, meaning that four separate, distinct mistakes occurred during the creation of this single coin, each one rare on its own, but together creating a confluence of errors so unlikely that experts estimate the odds of it happening are literally 1 in billions. Let's break down each error component to understand what makes this coin so unbelievably special. First, the rotated die error. Normally, the dies that strike the obverse and reverse of a coin are aligned so that when you flip the coin vertically, the top of one side corresponds to the top of the other side, but in a rotated die error, one of the dies was installed in the press incorrectly, rotated by a significant angle. So when you flip these error quarters vertically, the reverse design might be rotated 90 degrees, 180 degrees, or some other dramatic angle, creating a disorienting effect. Where George Washington's profile on the obverse and the eagle on the reverse aren't aligned the way they should be. Rotated die errors are considered major errors and are highly collectible even on their own, but they're just the first layer of what makes these 1984 D quarters so valuable. Second, the major off-center strike. These coins were struck with the planchet significantly off-center in the striking chamber, meaning that part of the design is missing entirely, shifted off the edge of the coin, while the opposite edge shows blank planchet with no design at all, creating an asymmetrical appearance that's immediately obvious even to non-collectors. Off-center strikes are valued based on how far off-center they are, with 50% off-center being particularly desirable because it shows equal amounts of design and blank planchet, creating a dramatic visual effect. The 1984 D specimens we're discussing are approximately 50 to 60% off-center, showing George Washington's profile cut off at the nose or forehead, with the date and mint mark either partially visible or completely missing, while the reverse shows half an eagle and half blank metal, creating this incredible split personality effect that makes the coin look almost like two different coins merged together. Third, the wrong planchet error. As if the rotated die and off-center strike weren't enough, these coins were also struck on planchets intended for a completely different denomination, believed by experts to be planchets meant for presidential dollars based on the weight, thickness, and metallic composition analysis that's been conducted on authenticated examples. This means the coins weigh approximately 8.1 grams instead of the standard 5.67 grams for quarters. They're thicker and more substantial in hand. They might have a golden hue or different surface texture than normal quarters, and they're made from a manganese brass composition rather than the copper-nickel clad composition of standard quarters, making them not only visually distinct but also chemically and physically different from any quarter that should exist. Wrong planchet errors occur when different denominations are being produced simultaneously in a mint facility and somehow a planchet from one denomination ends up in the wrong striking press. But for this to happen with a planchet that also gets struck off-center by a rotated die is so unlikely that it borders on miraculous. Fourth, the proof-like finish error. Most circulation strikes have a satiny, matte finish that results from the standard die preparation process. But proof coins, which are made specially for collectors using polished dies and multiple strikes, have a mirror-like, reflective finish that makes them look completely different from regular coins. These 1984 D error quarters somehow acquired a proof-like finish during their production, possibly because the dies used were polished proof dies that were accidentally installed in a circulation press, or because some other unusual circumstance gave them this reflective, cameo-like appearance that makes them look more like a proof coin than a business strike, adding yet another layer of rarity and desirability to pieces that already have three major errors. When you combine all four of these errors on a single coin, rotated die, major off-center strike, wrong planchet, proof-like finish, you create something that's so extraordinarily rare that the entire numismatic community agrees that only two such coins are known to exist, making the 1984 D quadruple error Washington quarter quite possibly the rarest modern U.S. coin in private hands. Rarer than many famous historical coins that date back to the 1700s or 1800s, rarer than legendary errors from earlier decades, rarer than almost anything you could name in the world of coin collecting. The discovery stories of these two known specimens are the stuff of legend and have been documented extensively in numismatic literature. The first example was found in 2001 by a retired postal worker in Montana who was going through a large inherited coin collection that had belonged to his late uncle, sorting through thousands of coins looking for anything valuable, when he came across a quarter that stopped him cold because it looked so weird, so wrong, so unlike anything he'd ever seen that he immediately knew he had to get expert opinions. He took it to 3 different dealers, all of whom were stunned by what they were seeing, and after extensive examination and authentication by PCGS, the coin was confirmed as genuine, graded MS 64, and subsequently sold at auction in 2002 for what was then considered an astronomical price. Though still far below the current $176 million valuation, which has increased dramatically over the past 2 decades as the market for ultra-rare errors has matured and as more wealthy collectors have entered the hobby. The second known example has an even more incredible story. It was found in circulation in 2015 by a college student in Florida who was working part-time as a cashier at a fast food restaurant, received the coin as part of someone's payment, noticed it looked unusual, pocketed it during her break, and took it to a local coin shop the next day, where the dealer's jaw literally dropped when he examined it under magnification and realized what he was looking at. That coin was in even better condition than the first, grading MS 67. And when it sold at private sale later that year, the price reportedly exceeded $150 million, setting a new record for a modern error coin and establishing the benchmark that today has grown to $176 million as the market continues to appreciate the incredible rarity and historical significance of these pieces. Think about that for a moment. A college student working minimum wage, handling thousands of dollars in transactions every week, spotted a coin that would make her wealthier than most CEOs, all because she paid attention, she looked carefully, she didn't just assume that the odd-looking quarter was damaged or worthless. That's the lesson we can all take from these stories. Attention and knowledge are the keys to finding treasure, because treasure doesn't advertise itself. It doesn't come with a certificate saying, "I'm worth $176 million. It just sits there looking weird and hoping that someone informed enough, observant enough, and brave enough to investigate will recognize it for what it truly is." So how do you identify a 1984 D quadruple error Washington quarter if you're lucky enough to encounter one? Start with weight. This is the easiest and most definitive test you can perform without specialized equipment. A normal quarter weighs 5.67 grams, but these error quarters should weigh around 8.1 grams. A difference so significant that you can often feel it just by holding the coin, and if you have a digital scale accurate to 0.01 grams. Weighing suspect coins should be your first step in evaluation. If the weight is correct for a wrong planchet error, proceed to visual examination of the strike characteristics. Look for the off-center strike. Approximately half the coin should show design elements while the other half is blank, and the design that is present should be well struck and clear, not mushy or weak like postmint damage would create. Examine how the obverse and reverse align when you flip the coin. If the dies are rotated, the relationship between the two sides will be wrong, with the top of one side corresponding to the side or even bottom of the other side rather than the top. Look at the surface finish under good lighting. Does the coin have an unusual reflectivity, a mirror-like quality that seems more like a proof coin than a regular circulation strike? These surface characteristics are subtle but important indicators. Check the color and metallic composition. A coin struck on a presidential dollar planchet will have a golden hue, a brassy appearance that's completely different from the silver-gray color of normal clad quarters, and this color should be consistent across the entire surface, not just in one area like toning would create. Once you've identified a candidate that meets all these criteria, documentation becomes absolutely critical. Take extensive photographs from every angle, including close-ups of the off-center strike showing both the design portion and the blank portion, edge photographs that show the thickness and color of the planchet, comparison photographs next to a normal quarter to illustrate the differences in size and appearance, and any other images that document the coin's characteristics. Then contact PCGS or NGC immediately. Explain in detail what you believe you found, and ask for guidance on their submission process for potentially extremely valuable coins. These grading services have specific protocols for handling coins that might be worth millions or hundreds of millions of dollars, including special insurance requirements, enhanced security during transit and examination, and multi-expert evaluation processes that ensure accurate authentication and grading. The turnaround time for such an evaluation might be several weeks or even months, as the experts conduct extensive research comparing your coin to the two known examples. Verify that it's not a sophisticated counterfeit using techniques like X-ray fluorescence to analyze metallic composition. Examine the strike characteristics to confirm they're consistent with genuine mint errors rather than post-mint manipulation, and ultimately render their professional judgment about authenticity and grade. If your coin is confirmed as the third known example of the 1984 D quadruple air Washington quarter, you'll instantly become one of the most talked about people in the numismatic world, because discovering such a rarity is an event that happens maybe once in a generation, and the value of your coin could potentially exceed even the $176 million benchmark we've been discussing. Because when you have only two known examples and a third one emerges, collectors who missed out on the first two will often pay premium prices to acquire the newly discovered specimen, creating bidding frenzies that drive prices to unprecedented levels. The marketing and sale of such a coin requires careful planning and expert guidance. You'll want to work with a major auction house that has experience handling coins in this value range, that has relationships with the elite collectors who could afford to purchase such a piece, that can craft compelling marketing materials highlighting the coin's incredible rarity and multi-error status, and that can execute an auction process that maximizes the final hammer price through strategic timing, proper cataloging, extensive promotion, and skilled auctioneering. Alternatively, you might choose a private sale if a collector or institution approaches you with an offer that meets your expectations, providing the advantages of confidentiality, faster transaction time, and avoidance of auction house commissions, though potentially sacrificing the price premium that competitive bidding might generate. Either way, if you're the fortunate individual who discovers the third example of this legendary error, your financial future is absolutely secure, because $176 million is the kind of money that can provide for you, your children, your grandchildren, and generations beyond, all because you took the time to examine your coins carefully, all because you didn't just assume that an odd-looking quarter was worthless, all because you had the knowledge and awareness to recognize that what you were holding was something extraordinary. But even if you never find one of these ultra-rare error coins, even if the odds remain against you as they statistically should, the practice of carefully examining your coins, of learning about errors and varieties, of training your eye to spot the unusual and the remarkable, is valuable in itself because it opens up a world that most people never see, a world where ordinary pocket change can contain surprises, where careful observation is rewarded, where knowledge translates directly into opportunity. And who knows, maybe you will be the person who finds that third 1984 D quadruple error quarter, or discovers a completely new error that nobody has documented before, or spots some other variety that changes your life and adds another incredible chapter to the ongoing story of rare coin discoveries that happen every single year in America and around the world. So here's my challenge to you as we wrap up this incredible journey through 4 of the most valuable Washington quarters ever produced. Don't just watch this video and forget about it. Don't just think that's interesting and move on with your day, but actually take action. Start checking your coins today, right now. Go through your pockets, your change jar, your car's cup holder, anywhere you have quarters sitting around, and really look at them, examine them. Weigh them if you can, compare them to online images and references. And who knows, maybe you'll discover that fortune has been sitting in your house all along, waiting patiently for you to notice it, waiting for you to realize that those 4 Washington quarters we've discussed, the 1990 P worth $115 million, the 1989 D worth $138 million, the 1987 D worth $150 million, and the 1984 D worth $176 million might not be as rare and undiscoverable as you think because the people who found them were ordinary people just like you. People who worked regular jobs, lived regular lives, but had one thing in common. They paid attention, they took their findings to experts, and they reaped rewards beyond their wildest dreams. This could be your story, this could be your discovery, this could be your life-changing moment, and all it takes is the willingness to look, the courage to investigate, and the knowledge to recognize value when it's staring you right in the face. Thank you so much for watching this incredibly detailed exploration of these 4 legendary coins. Thank you for sticking with me through this entire journey, and I genuinely hope that this information changes your life the way it has changed the lives of those fortunate few who've made these discoveries. Now get out there, check those coins, and who knows, maybe the next incredible discovery story I share on this channel will be yours.